listening to the Unshakable Health Podcast with Dr. Thomas Hemingway. All right, a big aloha to everybody from Hawaii. I'm so enjoying the beautiful weather. Holy moly. The day I returned home here, I think it was minus 12 where we were staying in the mountains of Utah, where you guys know I've been for the last couple of months because I got my mom and my stepmom, and they're both going through cancer right now. And so it's been so nice to be close to them. But oh my gosh, such a gift to be out here in warm weather. And I brought my dad and my stepmom with me, which is such a treasure, a gift, a true blessing to have them with me here in the warmth, the beauty, the sunshine, the smells, the colors. Oh, it's such a gift, such a treasure to have them with me this week. And just reminded me of that value and just gift of family and connection and the beauty of that. And that's what gets me excited to be there for them, to share this with them, to share this with you. You guys are part of my family, and I just appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. Listening to the Unshakable Health Podcast, because it is for you that I do this. I get so excited to share this. So when you subscribe, when you review it, and you let me know what you're loving, what you're learning, it just tickles my heart. So I hope you'll do that. If you haven't already, on Apple, super easy. Just scroll down to the bottom. You see those 5 stars. Click on the one farthest to the right, and then below that's a little square that's got a pencil coming out the top right corner. It looks like a little notepad. You click on that. Just type a little something for me. I just love to see what you're loving and learning. And I am going to give a couple of you who review the podcast that I can see over there on Apple, I'm going to give a couple of you a free copy of my upcoming book, Preventable. I will give a couple lucky souls who write a review a free book that's Preventable, 5 Powerful Practices to Avoid Disease and Build Unshakable Health, which is coming out in just a few short weeks. Oh my gosh, it's getting to go time. It's getting so exciting. There's so much going on with that. I can't wait to get that out to you in physical print. There will also be a digital version. I'm going to eventually do an audiobook where I will speak it. I hope, if Audible will let me, if I have a voice that they think will be pass the test, we'll see how that goes. But I will have in print and on digital download book coming up in just a few short weeks. And you can check out on my website, thomashemingway.com, even pre-order that today. And I'm going to give those lucky folks who do pre-order a couple surprises during the book launch. It's going to be really, really fun. Some cool trainings with me, which will be amazing. And you're just going to love having your copy. It can change your life and so many others. So spread the word, thepreventablebook.com, or on my website, easy place to find it, thomashemingway.com. There's a link to pre-order the book. And just, I'm so excited for this. Can't wait to share that with you. And I can't wait to share this episode with one of the OGs in health and wellness and fitness. She started like I did in biochemistry. She's super smart gal, and she's got over 40 years of experience in this area. She is fitter than a fiddle. She is amazing, beautiful, smart, intelligent, all the things. She is incredible. This is none other than J.J. Virgin, and she has so many accolades. Oh my gosh, I could be here for 20 minutes just sharing all those things, but she's a best-selling author, multiple times, New York Times, best-selling author. She's been on all the, media outlets, the Today Show, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, PBS, People Magazine, Rachel Ray, you name it. She's been there. She is continuing her gift of sharing with the world how you can get healthy simply. And if you want to lose weight in the process, she can show you how to do that. You do it by getting healthy. We get healthy to lose weight. We don't lose weight to get healthy. She shares that mantra with me, and she is incredible, beautiful, talented, super smart. So can't wait to get into it. We are going now with J.J. Virgin. Here we go. All right. We have an amazing episode today. Just one of the true icons in the fitness, health, and wellness industry. She's been doing this, gosh, I don't even know if I dare say 40 years. But it looks like she started recently. She's so healthy, so fit, just such a treasure, really. And I'm just so grateful to have J.J. Virgin on the show today, best-selling author in the Hall of Fame. Like, holy moly, we are blessed today. Aloha, J.J. How are you?
I am good. I know it's actually more than 40 years if you really start to unpack like some of the stuff I was doing in high school. So,
You were into fitness in high school. I don't know if I've ever heard that story.
yeah, I actually was teaching calisthenics and working out with the high school football team, because back then there weren't health clubs.
Yeah.
So I was working out in the high school football team's gym.
That's amazing. Were there other ladies like you, other young
No,
women there?
It
Just
was
you?
just me. It was just me on there. But I was very obsessed with being strong, and I was doing gymnastics and point ballet, which is, I'm 6 feet tall. That was not my sports. And so I was just looking for ways to get strong. And so there I went.
Wow. I don't know if I heard that before. That's amazing because especially like you said, in those days, calisthenics. I mean, I think some of the listeners here don't even know what that is.
Right. Jack LaLanne, they probably don't know who that is either, but all of that stuff, jumping jacks and jump ropes and push-ups and that kind of stuff.
That's so
hardcore.
Incredible. Well, what I love is you're as much into it now, coming up on, dare I say your age, JJ?
You can totally say my age.
That?
Yes.
So JJ is going to be turning 60, and holy moly, I mean, you're so incredible. And this has been your life for 40 plus years, lifting heavy things. I love that you started that way. And now more than ever, I think, and I'm sure you'll share with us why that's so darn important. Even more so in our later years, 50 and onwards, the gains we can get are even as good, if not better, with respect to our health and all of that. I hope we'll get into that because that's just phenomenal. I think a lot of people give up, like in their 30s, 40s. I'm just never going to be XYZ fit, or I'm never going to look like Mark Sisson, like we were talking about offline. I mean, it's never too late. So what's firing you up these days? Tell us a little bit about the last few years and what's getting you fired up lately.
I actually think this is like the most exciting time in health and wellness. There's so much cool stuff and there's so much great research. And then there's so much access to it because of all of these fantastic podcasts out. So, it used to be you had to go in the library and get into the stacks and look for all of this stuff. And then it was, okay, well, we can just go to PubMed. But now they're taking the scientists out of their labs and getting them on podcasts. And it has gotten me so fired up. I feel like I'm back in grad school and I'm going back into the text and just relearning. Like I was like, all right, I got to go back over the Krebs cycle, but it's so cool. And what we know now in terms of metabolism, aging, weight is incredible. What's crazy is like, we have so many incredible tools. We have so much knowledge. And we are worse than we've ever been in terms of our health. I'm like, what is this disconnect? Like, we have more access, we have more info, and I don't know, is it just too confusing? But which I'm really working on right now is, and what I really like to do is because my whole background is as a scientist. I was in doctoral school at USC in exercise phys, nutrition, and aging. And what was super cool there was we had 80 and 90-year-old athletes, master athletes. That was like, I would die to be as fit as you are. So, it's like you knew this was all possible. But it's like, I like to take all that science and go, all right, because each lab is working on their little thing. I'm like, how do we take all this information, synthesize it, simplify it, make it super actionable and understandable so someone can go, okay, all this stuff, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? And I go, you know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to eat protein first, lift heavy things, sleep like a baby. Done. Do that. Just do that. All right. But that's where I think maybe we're having so much challenge is, there's all these diet wars out there because people take food as religion, which drives me insane. And, just the infighting. And I go, it's science. It's not religion. These are pathways. It's biochemistry. That is it, like that's it. And, there's just exercise has always been a weird thing. Like if you look at exercise, just even saying exercise. Well, there's cardiovascular exercise, there's aerobic, there's anaerobic, there's resistance training, there's flexibility, there's core, there's, okay, are we going for strength? Are we going for power? Are we, endurance? What are we doing? And it's all over the board. So that's what I've been really plowing through right now. I'm getting ready to release a new book, and I've been just plowing through everything, trying to make sense of even the most basic things like how much protein should we eat, which that in its alone, you could get people fighting and bickering, and then
easily get
plant
people
versus
fighting.
Animal, and oh my gosh, and how much exercise should we have? And I can pretty much tell you, most people are not doing anywhere near as much exercise as they should.
Yeah.
It's like, and throw moderate exercise, no, go hard.
Yeah.
No, like go hard or go home.
Yeah. It's so awesome because it can be, I agree with you 100%. It actually can be very, very simple. We can just turn the clock back to what we did a couple hundred years ago before we had all this noise out there and all these garbage foods that we tend to call food. And I call it food-like substance. I mean, nothing out there that you find at the grocery store, especially in the center, is real food. If it's got more than one ingredient, most of it is just not very good. But it's so weird. I mean, I was in a similar place where about a decade ago, so I'm a board certified emergency physician by training. And when I started to see patients much younger than I having first-time heart attacks in their 30s, early 40s, I just thought, holy moly, what are we doing? We are not getting it right, at least as far as the prevention aspect. I'm very proud of what I was able to do in the ER for a couple of decades, helping people in their time of extreme need, whether it be heart attack, stroke, extreme trauma, or whatever that is. I think we're great at emergency care in this country, but we're really, really poor, sadly piss poor at the chronic and the prevention aspect, because that's where 90+% of the trillions of dollars in healthcare are spent in these chronic diseases that we could prevent most of them. We literally could prevent 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death worldwide. We could actually prevent it with the stuff that you teach. So let's get into some of your favorite topics. Where would you like to go first? I'd love to talk a little bit about protein, about metabolism. Where would you like to go?
Well, I know that we're talking metabolism and weight, so I just want to throw one out that really irritated me. And I wouldn't have known about it except someone DM'd me on Instagram and said, "Did you watch the 60 Minutes interview about, all the new weight loss medication?" Right.
And for the kids, the kids, 12 and 13-year-olds. It's
okay.
Crazy. Okay. Let's get into it.
All right. So, and I haven't been able to talk about it to anybody. So this is very cathartic. So I get a hold of this interview, and I'm listening to this interview, and they have this bariatric doc talking. And what she says is 60, it was either 50 or 60 to 85% of our obesity crisis is genetics.
Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. Because at the turn of in the 1900s, 0.5% of the population was obese. In 2022, is it 41 or 43% of the population is obese?
Yeah, it's 43.4 or something like that.
It's like,
that's
I keep
obese,
different
but overweight's like 70 some odd percent.
It's gone over. It's now, how do your genetics change in 122 years? Because that's not possible.
They don't, to any significant degree. They absolutely do not.
So if that's the case, and they made the argument that, if you are an obese child, the risk of or being in an obese household, I go, but that does not mean genetics.
Yeah.
That's not genetics. That's environment. They're very different things. So that just drove me nuts, because I went, hold on, if that's what we're saying, it's basically telling people, hey, just give up, you have to take a drug because it's all genetics. But it couldn't possibly be genetics, because if it was the case, then 43% of the population would have been obese in the 1900s.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense that all of these things, and here's my big belief, that you don't lose weight to get healthy. And that we have to, first of all, we got to talk about the scale, because I really want to blow up scales and only use bioimpedance. But you don't lose weight to get healthy. You have to get healthy to lose weight. And we have a health crisis going on. We have a metabolic health crisis. What is it now? 5% of the population's actually metabolically healthy, is none of the risk factors. And so if we just started to use a bioimpedance scale instead of a scale, like, to go to a doctor's office and step on a scale and find out what your weight is like going and getting your cholesterol checked and just knowing what your total cholesterol is. Yeah. We now know that's a meaningless thing. You've got to know what the LDL, what the VLDL, what the HDL, we've got to unpack it. Yeah. And it's the same with your weight. And it's not even, okay, let's figure out how much of your body is fat versus fat-free mass. No, we got to know where that fat is. Yes. And I'll tell you what was so interesting early on in my career, when I was paying my way through grad school as a personal trainer, me and Mark Sisson, this is the funny thing, me, Mark Sisson, and Body by Jake, as far as I can tell, we were the three that started this thing. And so I'm paying my way through grad school, and I'm going to clients' houses, and I remove the scale from the house because I believe that it's like, it's going to create all this havoc, and I'll just weigh them once a week. That's all we should do, and do tape measure. And I was doing skin fold calipers. Remember back the whole, you might not even remember.
We did that in high school. For the fitness exam and all that. We absolutely.
Because back then it was, the whole thing was pinch and itch.
Yeah.
But the challenge is, when you become very metabolically unhealthy, you actually have so much visceral adipose tissue, big, deep internal fat. It pushes out so hard against your body that you can't pinch an inch anymore. Right. And I had a client like this, and I went, and it's when I realized it was like a potato on stilts, basically. I mean, I was like, okay, this is, wow, how do I find out what this is? And I realized I could use a bioimpedance scale, and I could use this skin fold caliper, and the disparity was the amount that was that visceral fat. That's what I was looking for, was like, what's the difference? So we've really got to be able to unpack weight to know what that weight's made up of, so that we can know what we need to do, because I contend that the majority of people probably need to focus first on adding muscle and getting it very metabolically active.
Yeah, no. And that's, the whole weight thing. Geez, I think, what did that start in the early 1900s when we started counting calories with Dr. Lulu Hunt Peters, her original book on the calorie, and got everybody infatuated about the calorie concept, which, has its place, but it certainly, I think we've adulterated over the last 100+ years and really made it out to be something that it's caused more problems probably than anything. The calorie and the scale, right? Wouldn't you agree that they've been some of the misused things that have, I mean, look at us. Like you said, we're the least healthy we've ever been, and we have the most access to information technology. And it's just, wow, we got to change this.
Well, and if you take, so we have to look at, like, too much healthy food's unhealthy. Like, you can't just go overeat, right? But there's going to be a big difference in overeating on broccoli versus overeating on cupcakes. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. And the challenge with the calorie model is we have to unpack where those calories came from and what's happening because of them in the body. Now, I know there's all this arguments right now between calorie deficit, and the carbohydrate insulin model, but I think there's more to that model than just what's happening with insulin. I think we have to look at what's happening with inflammation. Yes. And if you're eating some of these inflammatory foods, like if you look at processed foods, what's the problem with these processed foods? And when I think of processed foods, because pretty much everything we're eating is processed. Like, you didn't go out and pick your broccoli. So something had
or grow it and then pick it. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's all processed, but I know it's called ultra processed. To me, it's the dirty process. It's the heavily refined grains with the damaged oils. And that fat carb blend is like the worst of the worst, but it's creating inflammation. So I think while there's the insulin model now, there's all these arguments of, like, is that really an issue? I think we're missing the actual problem, which is the inflammation that's creating. That creates a host of problems, right?
Yeah. And really every disease that you can think of that's sadly super common nowadays, from type 2 diabetes, of course, obesity is an inflammatory disease, even all of the mental illnesses, whether it be from, just simple depression or anxiety. These things are also neuroinflammation. There's inflammation happening in the brain. So they're all inflammatory. And I would agree with you 100% that literally the root of all illness lies in the inflammation. That's kind of even heart disease now is better understood with the inflammation model. It's not this cholesterol hypothesis, which has been completely debunked. It's not just what your LDL is. And sadly, many doctors out there are still sort of under, they haven't realized that it's more than just that silly LDL number. There's so much more to it. It's actually the inflammation that causes that acute heart attack, that causes the thickening and the intima, which is that lining of the endothelial, of the different vessels, and it's not being focused on at all. So let's get to it. Let's talk about maybe some of your favorite inflammatory triggers. What are the foods we absolutely should avoid? I know you have like a top 7 list or something. What are the absolute to avoid foods?
Well, really, the top 7 list came out of something else, and what it came out of was I was helping a lab company educate doctors. And they had a food sensitivity test. And so I was going I was teaching on this, and I would go into offices and help them run the labs. The labs took 3 weeks to come back. So I was seeing all the results of these labs, and it was a food sensitivity test, which is an IgG4, a delayed reaction to a food due to gut permeability. Okay. Now, I saw over and over again, eggs and dairy were the top ones causing this reaction. Next were soy, corn, and peanuts. And gluten's another way it's another test. So I started looking at all of this and going, the elimination diet had been used for decades, and it never made sense to me. It was very complicated. It was like strawberries and citrus. And I was like, I'm seeing gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, soy, peanuts. And the reason I say gluten is gluten actually triggers the release of something in the small intestine, zonulin, which makes your gut more permeable. I added in sugar because as I first started doing this, I discovered that if I didn't pull out sugar, that's just what they ate. And then, of course, I disrupted the gut microbiome. I created a lot of inflammation from the sugar, but fructose specifically makes your gut leakier. So fructose and glucose, or fructose and gluten together are like this 1-2 punch to make your gut leakier. And now we know your brain leakier, right? You just talked about, mental illness. I love what Dr. Daniel Amen says. It's like, it's not mental illness, it's brain illness.
Brain health. It's just
right. And so, what are we doing to make our gut leaky, our brain leaky? If one's getting leaky, chances are both of them are. So that's where that came from, is I was looking at these labs. And so I started, because there was a 3-week window to get the labs back, I started just having them pull the foods out while I was waiting, the most common ones. And what I discovered was they felt so much better after even a week. The average person lost 7 pounds right away, which, that's not 7 pounds of fat, that like in a week that ain't happening. Yeah. It's inflammation. It's extracellular fluid. It's like inflammation. So I was like going, all right, they feel so much better, like joint pain gone, headaches gone, brain fog gone, skin clearing up, that they're just in it now, feeling, because they didn't know they could feel that good. At the end of that time, then what you do is you go and say, how do I feel when I eat these foods? Like if I know if I eat gluten, that my fingers are immediately like, I can feel it the next day. The fingers just start to get crampy. So I can rotate pastured eggs into the diet. But, the challenges with most of the places where we're getting eggs, if you're out at a restaurant, you aren't getting pastured eggs. You're getting fast food eggs. You're getting the white bread of eggs. It's like, just like if you're at a restaurant, you're getting extra virgin olive oil blend, which means you just got canola oil, soybean, right. You got corn-fed eggs that were cooked in canola oil that shouldn't be heated, just all this stuff. So that's where that first started. And what's interesting is I was taking people through this program. I think one of the reasons that it works so well is that it's impossible to eat dirty processed foods if you're not eating gluten, dairy, corn, eggs, soy, peanuts, sugar, and artificial sweeteners. That rules all that out. Yeah. So as I'm working on the next book, Swap to Drop, which is really like what we've learned in the last 10 years after I published Virgin Diet, is we got to address damaged oils too. But the reality was they really got pulled out purely because we were taking out all these dirty processed foods. However, if you're eating out, you have to be so vigilant because, you'll ask, is this olive oil? Oh, it's a blend. It's like, right?
10% olive oil, 90% canola and soybean.
Right. 10% of them were lucky. All they had to do was put a little beep and they could say it was a blend. So Nightmare.
Yeah, they do
At
that in
least
the
you're
restaurant and on the packaged goods. Like if you buy a quote unquote olive oil dressing, it's always down the list from
right,
soybean and
because it would be
canola,
too
which are,
expensive.
it's and they call it olive oil dressing.
I
It just
know
irritates.
it's just a joke. So it's like, what do you do at home? You get really good olive oil and you have great vinegar, and you just have those two.
Yeah.
You just put them on your salad and you're done. It's so simple. This is not a hard thing. And it was less than the olive oil blend thing that you had. So, I mean, that's where that came from. And I find most people, I'm not a fan of corn, and, corn is not a vegetable.
I know, so high in sugar and everything, and all the crap they grow it in, right? All the pesticides.
Right. It's one of the most genetically modified foods. Soy is such a hard one to come to grips with, because, there's some research on some of the isoflavones, but I think there's much better, if you're going to look for any of those phytoestrogens, better places to get it than something that's so new to our food supply that needs to be heavily fermented to get rid of the anti-nutrients and is probably genetically modified. And guys shouldn't touch it. Young kids shouldn't touch it. So, maybe if you're menopausal, but I think there's way better options. So I'm not a fan of that either. So soy and peanuts, like, why would you eat peanuts if you could eat real nuts?
Yeah.
Why would you eat peanuts? I don't know. They're one of the moldiest crops out there. So that doesn't make sense. If you handle dairy and you can get yourself some grass-fed, grass-finished dairy that you then ferment into yogurt, okay, that could make sense if you don't have any issues with it. I use grass-fed ghee, pastured eggs, but you go through the process to really figure out if those foods work for you or if they don't, because a food could be healthy, like a pastured egg or grass-fed dairy, but it might trigger your autoimmune and it's not healthy for you. So that was really the point of that book. However, some people, I think, didn't read, and I think most people, they look for the little, like, what's the program? They took that part and they missed the whole part of, like, then you go back and re-challenge. Because I'll run into people and they go, I've been on this 10 years. I'm like, it's a 3-week program. So, okay, wow. It's a 3-week program you do once a year. But I think for most of us, if we, I feel that people are better off without gluten. They're better off without, like, they just are. And so it's just, boy, it's so easy once you get used to eating clean protein and vegetables, and then a little bit of things like avocados and a little bit of berries and fruit and a little bit of olive oil. Like, this is not hard. This is it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That sounds like actually my exact diet. I mean, last night I have my parents visiting right now, and I made them grass-fed tri-tip. It was a beautiful steak that I slow cooked, and it was, Mark Sisson would have been proud. Like, this is the kind of stuff he loves as well. And I slow cooked it. I told my dad, the days of like firing up the grill to 600 degrees and cooking for 10 minutes, like those are out. I slow cooked the thing, just kind of roasted it, and it was so juicy. And I'll be honest, I like my steak medium. My kids and everybody else likes it well done. And so this was a way to not only cook it, it was well done, but it was so juicy. It was so incredible. And all we had, JJ, was that ribeye or tri-tip, I should say. It was tri-tip. And then we had vegetables. We had Brussels sprouts. We had a couple other roasted vegetables that we literally threw in with some butter. It was grass-fed butter. I can't find ghee as easily in Hawaii. We're in Hawaii currently, and it's just not a thing really here.
But you guys have all grass-fed.
All the cattle and stuff is pretty much all grass-fed. It's all local. We don't have CAFOs here, those confined animal feeding operations. They just don't exist. It's awesome. It's not like driving down the 5 freeway in California where you see them everywhere. And it just makes your heart sink. It's just like, oh my goodness. So fortunately in Hawaii, they're all grass-fed and they literally graze like they have done for millennia, and so we had that and just vegetables, and we had an amazing meal. And I was so, I slept well because I ate it kind of early. I think 5 or 6 we were done, and then it was beautiful and it was simple. It was as simple as you said, the simplicity.
And I love that the focus now, I mean, it's been all over the board with intermittent fasting. It's funny, I was listening to something today and I go, I so agree. It's like this whole idea that 12-hour overnight fast is intermittent fasting. It's like, no, that's just normal.
That's the normal baseline.
Like, we need to stop eating 3 to 4 hours before bed. And then, you wake up and you wait 2 hours, 3 hours before eating so that your pancreas actually woke up too. And then you're in a, 9 to 10 hour window. The one thing I'm not liking with all the intermittent, so I'm glad they've called attention to time restricted eating, which is how we should always have been eating. And I don't know where we ever got into all this weirdness of, you look at, was it Taco Bell that started the fourth meal at midnight? I was like, what is that? Fourth meal. And, but I do believe, I love Dr. Sachin Panda's work. I think that where intermittent fasting has gone really wrong is this breakfast, is skip breakfast, have lunch and dinner. I'm like, no, skip dinner. Have brunch and early dinner, late lunch. But I don't buy the eat late. I think we need to really focus on eating during the circadian rhythm. It's so clear from the research.
No, the data is super clear on that. It's much better to have a breakfast if you do breakfast. And I actually, I'll be honest with you, JJ, I was doing like hardcore intermittent fasting for a couple of years. And now I do medium core. So I do 12 to 14 hours always every day, but I don't do the 18, 20. I don't do the OMAD thing anymore. I tried that. And I really value having 3 healthy meals, but during normal daylight hours. And I try to finish up between 5 and 6. And then I'm usually up working and with the kids and until 10. So it works out really good. And that's what, the data suggests is most helpful, is to end the evening a little earlier with respect to your food. And I just call it a food curfew, because that's an easy word. I got young kids, they have a curfew. Well, we also need a food curfew. Like, it's that simple.
That's a good one. It's funny. I was really practicing fasted workouts, intermittent fasting, and I gave it a shot. I said, okay, I'm going to try this. And then I thought, all right, now I'm going to do non-fasted workout. It is clear for women, fasted workouts are not the way to go. Nope, not the way to go. And the difference in my resistance training when I ate beforehand, and I'm not talking, hey, I'm eating a steak and going to the gym. I'm like, an hour before. The difference was insane. Insane how much stronger I was. And so I went, all right, that clearly is a little test. Cause I think there's all this, well, if you do a fasted workout, you'll burn more fat. I can go, except I'm doing intense exercise. I shouldn't be burning fat during my intense exercise. I should be burning glycogen and glucose. Yeah. So I'm not really understanding that idea. And most of the time, the best time to burn fat is when you are sitting on your butt. That's when we burn fat. Yeah. That's the best time. You shouldn't be burning fat during a HIIT training session. The most of your fuel should be coming from glucose and glycogen. So, I look at this and I go, we've got to look at all of these things and go, all right, how does this work for me? I think there is definitely something there to help with some speed healing for the gut, to reestablish blood sugar control. So I think there's some times to really use it, and to use a 6 to 8 hour window, or maybe 1 meal a day. My buddy, Dr. Terry Walls, she eats every other day to control her MS. So I think there's ways to use these things, but I think we've got to look at diets as tools and go, all right, based on what I'm trying to achieve, what do I need to do? And for a lot of the people that I'm focused on, I'm wanting them to put on muscle. And I don't know how to get the amount of protein they need in 1 or 2 meals a day. Yeah. It's not going to work.
Yeah. That's what really made the difference for me when I decided that I was going to be super proactive about making sure I got my 120 to 150 grams of protein a day. And I was struggling to do it in 2 meals, exactly like you said. And I didn't think that I would, and I was trying to supplement with some, better quality protein, powders and things like that to make sure I hit my mark. But I wasn't liking it as much. So I started eating breakfast again. And I actually do love breakfast. And this is not anything like the American breakfast. It doesn't include any kind of grains, no processed foods at all. It's some pasture raised eggs. It's avocado. It's some type of a protein source with, in addition to the eggs, like a meat or something. Usually it's leftovers from the night before. Like if I had leftover tri-tip, I would throw that in with my eggs this morning, kind of thing. It's really not super hard. But when breakfast I started to add my favorite meal. I'm with you. I started to add back in breakfast, and I felt so much better because I do a workout usually in the morning as well. And I came up with that independently, that I felt better when I had some kind of protein source in me to do that, resistance training, whatever that looked like for me. And I was like, I think I was just into that whole, we have to do the, the OMAD or the intermittent fasting.
There was like
thing.
breakfast shaming going on.
Yeah, breakfast
shaming. You eat breakfast? I'm like, I do. Oh my God, I'm sorry. And I dirty fasted too.
But I agree. Like the intermittent fasting, I especially think longer fasts occasionally. Like I always do at least a once a month, 24 to 48 hour once a month. Usually it's 24 most months. And then once a year, I try to do a 3-day fast, but I'm not doing that every single day, or once a week. I'm doing it, once a month. I think a good, sort of annual thing to do is a prolonged fast of 2 or 3 days is great. But it's not, I think the OMAD thing is just a little bit ridiculous. I mean, no disrespect to, the guys that are preaching that it has to be a certain amount of caloric restriction to the extreme where you only eat one meal a day. And that's the only way, the David Sinclairs of the world, right? The only way you're going to live long.
So
and it's
disproved.
No, I don't think so.
It's been disproved. I mean, it's like that whole caloric restriction with optimal nutrition and having to really, it's been disproved. I just, I think the name of the game is be metabolically healthy, throw in some fast to trigger autophagy, and then focus on making sure that you've got really good skeletal muscle and that you're doing some great, HIIT training too. So you've got your heart stimulated, and walk after your meals as much as possible. Make sure your blood sugar is regulating well. I think it's great to use a CGM.
Yes.
To just figure out, I just was realizing I need to scan mine, just to see what's going on and to see how foods and exercise and stress and everything else react to you. It's funny. I did a Prolon fasting mimicking diet I was going to do it for 5 days. And my husband and I did it. He's always, whatever I come up with, he's like, I'll do it. Okay. So,
Yay. Real compliant. That's great.
He's totally compliant and he follows all the rules. Like I am the absolute opposite. I will look at how do I break a rule? What else can I do? And he is Mr. Rule Follower on anything we're doing. So we're doing this, but I've got a CGM on and I am watching as I get into day 3, my blood sugar is spiking to 224. I'm like, holy smokes.
On a fasted mimicking? That's what?
Because they have you drink this glucose water. Oh. And my body was like, oh, no, we do not like this. We don't and the fasting mimicking diet is basically super low. It's like 10%, it's like 700 calories a day, I think, but it's super low protein, like maybe 70 calories from protein. It's basically carbs with a little fat and very little protein because it's trying to just suppress mTOR. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of understand what it is. But boy, I got to day 4, the night of day 4, I had dropped 5 pounds. I was very irritated. And I looked at him who's like gliding through this, like no big deal. And I said, I need a steak. I need a glass of wine. That's what I need. Like this has to happen. Which we made it through that night to the next day. But it was it's definitely, I think any of these types of things are great tools to throw in and do. But again, the bigger takeaway is, all right, what's your goal right now? What's the first goal? Is it fixing your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity? Is it, dropping your body fat some? Is it adding muscle? Do the thing for that first.
Yeah. Yeah. And just keep in mind the mantra that you've just explained so easily detailed and simply is that we get healthy. And then if we want to, we lose weight. We get healthy first. And that's so important. And I would have to say that the CGM for me was mind blowing when I did that. And I don't wish this on anybody. My young daughter got type 1 diabetes last year. And so we got her one and it was like, well, I'll do it with you. We can both do this. And I was flabbergasted at certain foods too, that would really spike it. Certain foods I just don't eat anymore. For example, I'll never eat oatmeal again. For me, that just spiked me. Even I'm talking the oatmeal that's not even tasty, right?
I love it so much.
Yeah. And
I'm the same way. I'm hijacked from it.
Yeah. And then the other thing which you mentioned, which is really, really cool, which is not just the food piece, is how your sleep, how your stress plays in, and then the after meal, movement, whether that be walking, which most cases for us, it is walking, except right now we've been spending a lot of time in Utah, which is where my mom and stepmom live, and they're both really ill right now. And it's been really, really cold. So it's like negative something degrees up in the mountains where we are. And so we can't get out and walk easily. So you know what we do, JJ? We do a dance party. I put on a couple of songs, and me and the kids, we just get goofy in the living room, and they'll usually be dancing. I might be on my balance board or lifting some weights, or we all do some kind of movement for 10 to 15 minutes after every meal. And during the winter, it's not walking around the block, because if anybody's put snow gear on a kid, like that'll take you 15 minutes just to do that.
What you all need to do is just go roll around in the snow and get your cold exposure.
That too. And we do that. Maybe not as frequently as we should with that sort of, we do a lot of cold exposure, but not take the clothes off and roll around unless we have a hot tub to jump in right away.
Although I have a cold plunge now. That was one of the things that we got. It's fantastic. And so kind of some things we've added into our life, like we do our sauna, we do hot yoga, and we do cold plunging. And I try to do cold plunging pretty much every morning, because one of the challenges is like, you don't want to cold plunge after a weight workout because you want to keep, you don't want to blunt the response. So I try to do it, meditate, and then go get in the cold plunge. I meditate, then I have some coffee so I can get ready. And then I go in the cold plunge.
That's a good idea. Get warmed up, and then you just get in there and you just make it happen. Do you do like the 4 minutes at 40 degrees thing, or what's your regimen?
We do not like that's. I was so pleased with myself doing my 8 minutes at 50. And then a girlfriend came over. She goes, it's 4 minutes at 40. I go, you know what? But
40 is brutal.
So it's so funny, because every degree you turn it down, you're like, holy smokes. So we have it at 48 right now.
Okay.
And we're creeping it down. So we'll see. Although now we're going out of town again. And it's like you get used to it and it gets easier and easier. And then you go out of town and you start all over again, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I joke with people and I say the reason that I was healthy as a kid, even though I ate all the crappy, because that's when the whole snack food industry started, when I was a kid, and everybody had the snack wells and the garbage granola bars. And I ate that crap too. But I joke with people the way I stayed healthy is that I got in the 50-degree water in California every single day as a kid. And for the better part of my youth, I didn't have a wetsuit, because I also grew up in a family with 6 kids, and my parents couldn't afford 6 wetsuits. So I didn't have one for most of that time. And I'd go surfing with no wetsuit at 50 degrees. Wow. I didn't last hours like I would now, but I was out there at least an hour, in 50 degrees.
But that's fantastic. See, they really helped you out with that.
It's amazing. The other thing they helped me with, and I give my mom credit, is it sounds ridiculous, but we used to have a lock on our fridge, like an actual lock. And so
you're kidding.
After dinner at night, 5 o'clock, we always had dinner early. The fridge and the kitchen were closed until 7 a.m. the next day. So we did a 14-hour intermittent fast as kids, and that was just normal life. We didn't call it time restricted feeding. We didn't call it intermittent fasting. That was normal life for growing up in the Hemingway household. And we were all better off for it, which was crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. What was her reason for doing it?
Well, when you have 5 boys, and
you could end up with no
crazy,
food.
You'd have no food on day 2, and your budget was already gone for the week. So that was kind of the rationale.
Wow.
Make sure we had enough to last the whole week.
Wild.
Anyway, I wanted to ask you specifically about the exercise piece or the movement piece. Like, what are you doing now? How has that evolved over the years for you? What I love is you've always used strength, and building muscle as a core part of that. And I think that you are way ahead of the curve on that, because I know, at least in my training, all we ever talked about was aerobic, which is fantastic, but it's not enough. So how has that evolved for you? And then what are you doing today with respect to your movement or exercise piece?
So when I was in grad school, everything was about cardio.
Yeah.
All the thesis, all the work was on cardio training. We had sponsorships from Precor, and I just thought it was dumb. So because I looked at it and I went, and the research wasn't there yet. I remember the only thing I could find was something that said that women that tried to maintain their weight by, running would, the minute they stopped running, gain it all back. And I go, that's because that's not what they need to put on. They need muscle. Like it made so much sense. Everyone was like, muscle's heavier than, and I'm like, okay, well, let's look at this. So I kept thinking what we really need to do is put on muscle. And so even my graduate work was on spinal biomechanics, spinal lifting biomechanics, because my parents were golfers, and I thought, you know what, all my clients were golfers, and I thought this is a like good business opportunity because all the golfers have bad backs. I'll do spinal lifting biomechanics. But one of the things that happened as I was putting together the design for that study was I had to figure out how to get someone strong as quickly as possible. And back then it was 3 to 6 reps, multiple sets, and not allowing full recovery. So we'd recruit more fibers, but it was short sets, which still is for strength. Although now, now the research is like, it really is about fatigue. And I think it's also, are you trying to generate power? Are you trying to get strength? Are you trying to get some kind of muscular endurance? And I would argue, for what's most effective for us, we want some mass to protect our bones. Yeah. And then we want that muscular endurance to be able to like carry the groceries up the stairs, bend over and pull things out. So we've got to we want some absolute strength, but we also want some endurance with it. So what I've been doing now, and I used to way back when, I would take my clients down to Gold's Gym in Venice. And it was before they even had personal trainers, right? So it was easy then. When, 10 years later, there were 400 trainers there. It was like crazy. But I would take them there on field trips to show them what was possible, because it was insane what you would see at this gym. It was like the bodybuilding gym of the country. And I would go in there, I'd feel like petite, And it was
to the high school days, you and a bunch of dudes trying to get all Hulk style,
And it was crazy. All the women would be like, I don't want to get big. And I'm like, you're not big. And thankfully back then, Miriam Nestle was at Tufts, and she did a study showing that when women lifted weights, they got smaller. And I was like, you get smaller, because they were so afraid they were going to get these big bulky muscles. I'm like, you don't have the hormones to have big bulky muscles. And by the way, we can stop at any point. That's the great thing with muscle. It's like, we can't lift one weight and it's just going to keep growing, So easy enough. So what I've been really looking at, I looked at that. And then it was really looking at, all right, in terms of cardio, what should we be doing? And what became very clear back then was that high intensity interval training, doing bursts and recover. In fact, I early on created a class when I was an aerobics instructor. I created a plyometric training class, a jump class. But the problem was everyone was working out. All the classes were an hour. And you killed people in like,
that's a long time to do that.
15 minutes. They were like lying on the floor. And I wasn't savvy enough then to go, gosh, we need to reframe fitness to show how we can create faster results, and then not charge people by the hour, charge people by the effect, right? Yeah. Get that metabolic effect. So that kind of became the thing, is like, let's walk after meals, lower the blood sugar response. Let's do high intensity interval training to really push growth hormone, lactic acid threshold, all that. And then let's do resistance training and vary it up as much as possible. Now I'm doing it, and I'm varying it between doing 3 to 6 reps, heavy, multiple sets. Then I move into it. I'll do that when I go to the gym some, with some isometrics thrown in. I just started doing some isometrics, load at as extended on the muscle as possible, right? Not when it's shortened, but when it's lengthened almost all the way, but just when you're starting to contract, do the load. And then I'm doing 8 to 12 reps, multiple sets. And then I'm doing these. I hate these. Like if you ask me what I love, 3 sets, like let's do some, there's 3 reps, but then I'm doing like 20 to 30 just because I hate it so much. So, and then I'll mix them up. I'll do one day that's real short, one day that's longer, and one day that's super long. And the short days allow me to just push the weight, and then I'll manage to get the other ones up as well. I've been using a TRX trainer, a lot of free weights, cables, and that. And then a couple years ago, I was invited to go speak at a spa, and I was at this spa speaking, and there was a TRX, like the lead trainer for the country was there. And so I got to learn all the TRX stuff. And then I also went to a yoga class, and and here I am, I'm speaking on health and fitness, and I'm sucking at this yoga class, and they are teasing me and I was a gymnast, and I'm like, wow, I really can't do any of this stuff anymore. So once again, I recruited my husband.
Yay.
And I know he will do anything. Seriously. I'm like, okay, honey, awesome. Now we're doing yoga. But what we discovered was we could go to LA Fitness in Tampa, and the yoga class was like, everyone was 70 plus. There were a lot of guys.
You felt good right away.
Yeah. I was like, we are not the worst people in the class. So we do this for a year. We think we're really like, we're yogis, right? And then we go out to California, and we're staying in San Diego for a couple of months at an Airbnb. And I go, all right, let's go to yoga. There's a yoga class 5 minutes from our place, and it's the perfect time. I don't check what it is. I just look at the time and location. We walk in, we have yoga mats. That's it. No water, no towels, no nothing. It's hot, advanced yoga. And I'm looking at Tim, and I'm like, we are out of here. And he goes, no, we're not. We are in there. We are packed in like sardines. We have nothing. We are sliding. It's like an ice rink in there. And we got out of that. And I went, we both were like, okay, this is our thing. Like now we do hot yoga twice a week. Oh. And, when you really look at what are critical factors as you're aging, like when you look at what they're now linking to, the higher risk of all cause mortality, it's how fast can you walk? You want to be the person when they're going, hey, wait up for me. Hard, can you open up the jar? How hard can you grip? Can you stand on one leg? So all the stuff in yoga that I was like, I can't, like, why am I standing on one leg bending over? It's like, now I get it. Yoga is like the ultimate thing that anyone 50 plus should be doing, because you'd never do that. And like, you're in real life, you're not going to stand there, put your ankle on your other knee and then bend over and bend down and try to keep your chest up. You're not doing that. You're like, I'm not doing that. Right. But man, like I can do crow pose now. I'm like,
you're crushing it.
It's very cool.
if I went to a yoga class with you, you'd feel really, really good, because that's kind of my Achilles heel, if you will. I'm not very good at it, but in the last couple of years, I decided that I have to get better at it, because I'm a surfer, and I've noticed my back's more stiff than it used to be. And it takes me a minute to I can't just roll out of bed at 4:30 in the morning and surf at 5 and be in my best possible, space. I actually need a little bit of a warm up.
It's great for surfing. I mean, look at all the extension, right? It's like all extension, all that Cobra. I'm not, so I count every minute in yoga class. I'm like, okay, now I'm a third of the way through. Like literally the whole time I'm looking, I'm a third of the way. I'm 2/5 the way. I'm like, but it has made a major difference. So I think the most important thing is you've just got to keep challenging yourself. It's so easy to fall into a rut, but if you're doing the same stuff and you're aging, you're not staying the same. You're declining. If you look at it and go, okay, age 40 plus, 1% muscle loss, mass loss a year. Age 60 plus, 2% muscle mass loss a year. I'm not losing it. I am going to do whatever I am lifting heavier now. I'm in there picking up heavy stuff, and very functionally too. So
heavy function, the balance and flexibility. I mean, it's no secret, right? The folks in Okinawa, like Tai Chi is one of their main things that they do. And they do it both for the flexibility and balance, but also the community of it, right? It's just fun to do stuff in community. One last thing I wanted to ask you, JJ, because I know this is a unique, and I think you and I share a similar experience with this, that this is with mindfulness, meditation, whatever you call that stress optimization technique that you do. I have always had a hard time sitting still for any period of time, whether it be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm such a ADD all over the place. I can't stop moving. My mom's visiting right now, and she said, do you ever sit down in the course of the day? She's like, what's the matter with you? You never sit. I'm just constantly on the move. So I was hoping you could share a little bit about your experience with the power of mindfulness, meditation, and how you could do that in maybe a slim down. I don't know how many minutes you do on a regular basis, but I know a lot of us, especially all the moms that are listening, are like, I can't do 30 minutes in a day. I can never do 60 minutes. Like, how do I condense that? How do I make it effective? But I want to incorporate some sort of meditation, mindfulness into my daily practice. What would you say?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, it was April 2021. April 2021, we decided we were going to go to this week-long Dr. Joe Dispenza event. Now, I knew who he was. I'd heard his books, but I did not know what I was going. Like everyone's like, we're going to go. I'm like, okay. I was like, meditation retreat, woo. And the funny part is I'd never been able to meditate. I would try the meditation where you're supposed to have the mantra, and all I would think about is all the stuff I need to get done. And so we would try to do it in the morning. And I go, this is just it's not working. So it's just not good for me. I meditate when I work out. That was always my thing. Yeah. Meditate when I work out. So I go to this week-long Dr. Joe meditation retreat, and you have all this homework you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do these meditations. I'm like, I am going to a meditation retreat. Why would I do that? I'll do it there. Right. And so I go with all these friends who are meditators, and they're all having these deep experiences. And I am sitting there with myself, thinking, and we're literally, when you go to a Dr. Joe week-long event, you meditate like 40 hours. He has you start at 6 a.m. every morning, except for 2 mornings, he has you start at 4 a.m. And literally he will do a lecture, then you meditate, then lecture, then meditate. And then you go do a walking meditation. Then you do another meditation. It's like blah, 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 all day long. And he's exposing you to all these different types to just push you. And so I go through this whole first week, and I'm like watching everybody around me have these amazing transformational experiences. And you can hear people having amazing transformational experiences. So I know it's possible. And I figure, you know what? This is like taking your nervous system to the gym. You would not go to the gym one time or for a week and go, okay, man, cross that off the list. I'm done. So I thought, I'm going to give this 6 months. So I signed up for the next one because, what else can you do during the pandemic but go to week-long meditation retreats, right? So I go to Cancun, and it's another week long. And then I had breakfast with him in Cancun. And so, I was asking him some different questions, and I'm still like, all right, clearly this is challenging for me. I'm going to go to another one. So I went to an advanced one, and I'm starting to get a little bit the challenge with meditation is it's not like doing a math equation where you're like, oh, got that right. You're like, did it work? Did I do it? Did it happen? You're right. So, but I'm noticing that I'm not anywhere near as reactive as I used to be. I can focus more. What is there an entrepreneur out there who doesn't have ADD? I don't think there is. And so I'm like, wow, I'm focusing and paying attention and not reacting and blah, all this cool stuff. And my team's going, we really like you. We like whatever you're doing.
Don't ever stop, whatever that is.
Don't stop doing that. And so then I went to January, and things really, that's when it just all clicked. I got to be one of their coherence Healies. And so we do it. Here's what's interesting. I was listening to a podcast that Dr. Andrew Huberman was doing, and he talked about meditation, and that meditation is really about learning how to do this. And then once you do, and I notice it now, you can get into it very quickly. And so where, at first we were doing 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, now we can do 15 to 30 minutes in the morning. And what we do is we just wake up, take the puppies out, get back in bed, meditate. And yes, we shouldn't be in bed. We actually got meditation chairs, but you know what? I just sit up in bed, and that's what I do. And it works. So, and the dogs come in, we all get in bed, the old dog, the puppy, everyone gets in there, everyone goes quiet, and everyone meditates, including the dogs. They hear Dr. Joe's, they do. They literally hear eyes closed, and they go, boom. It's the cutest thing. So
that's amazing.
And then on Wednesdays, we go to our hot yoga, and we do a sound healing, a sound meditation before that. And it's been interesting because I've been exposed to a bunch of different breath work techniques. My girlfriend does this vision amplifier, Jen Hootie. And what I'm discovering is now my nervous system starts to flutter. It's wild. I get in there, I'm like, oh, right. So it's just one of those things you have to practice. But when you really look at being healthy, if you are in a constant state of sympathetic drive, and this is where women live, and especially as you start to go into perimenopause, we are in sympathetic drive. We have so many things to think about all the time. If we have a job, we have a second job, which is the house, then we have the kids, then we're the chief healthcare officer. There's just so much stuff that you're always thinking, and you're in sympathetic drive. And you've got to shut that down. And it was funny when I was doing this with Dr. Joe, I was at dinner with him, I think in the third one, and I was sitting next to him and I said, I have lost 5 pounds doing nothing, just sitting on my butt, meditating. Like I changed nothing, didn't change my exercise, didn't change my diet, nothing else changed, just meditated. And Dr. Joe talks about becoming no one, nowhere, no thing. And he said, that's the no thing diet. That's very funny. But, I think it's for so many of us, we can step on a scale and see what's going on. We can test our blood sugar, we can test our blood pressure, but we don't really think about this nervous system thing because we can't really go, oh, like I'm going to test my nervous system. You can look at things like HRV, et cetera, but if you cannot be healthy, if you're in sympathetic drive, if you are in flight or fight, your gut's going to be all messed up. You won't be able to digest and rest. You're not going to be able to build muscle. You're going to have more sugar cravings. All your sleep will get disrupted. Also, your gut will get leaky. So it's this little forgotten piece of health that can't be. It has to be in there. Like just like you take your body to the gym, you have to take your nervous system there too.
Yes, I love that analogy. I had that experience, not with meditation per se, because I still am in that phase where I'm not that good at it yet. If I need to, I do what you used to say. I meditate while I'm surfing because there's a lot of downtime when you're sitting and waiting for a set wave to come. 10 minutes could go by. So that's kind of my, just meditative state. But that's one of the things I have on my sort of goal list is to improve that, because when I improved another area of my life, I had a similar thing happen. And that was my sleep. Once I started to appreciate the sleep piece, and I started to share that with other people I was working with, including my wife, who's been the most fit, active person. I mean, you and she would get along so well. She started early on with all of the fitness stuff, and she graduated in kinesiology, and then she got a second bachelor's in nursing, and then she decided after a decade in the ICU, she didn't want to be a nurse, but she's always had this fitness and health thing going. And she in her 40s was like, what's the matter, Thomas? I'm like the weight, like, I do everything the same. My food, my exercise, she moves 7 days a week and she's got, whatever, 5 or 7 pounds that she can't get rid of. And I said, what about your sleep? Have you really focused on that? She's like, oh, come on. We got 6 kids. I can't, I just can't do that part. And we worked on that, and she and I together just made it a priority. We started getting some silly watches and monitoring it a little bit. And it was amazing that the sleep just melted that last few pounds away with no additional effort, as far as nothing more in the workout, nothing different in the foods. And it sounds like the meditative mindfulness piece is as powerful as that as well. I think those are the secret ingredients that we often forget about. They just get forgotten. They really do.
Yep. Well, there was a great study that came out that showed that even if you're eating well and exercising, if you're not getting your 7 to 9 hours of quality of sleep, you're at risk for obesity. I mean, what more do you need to know? And I just think, as you were saying, I'm not good at meditation. I think of what Emily Fletcher, who's fabulous, of Ziva meditation, says. She goes, you don't meditate to get good at meditation. You meditate to get good at life.
Ah. Well, you may see me at Dr. Joe's event at some point in the future. I've been a fan of his for a long time, but I not done one of his retreats. That sounds hard, but it sounds amazing.
They're awesome. They're amazing. They're fabulous.
Oh my gosh. Well, JJ, it's been such a pleasure. I would love for you to just take a moment and share any final thoughts, and then of course where people can find you, follow you, access to your programs, your books, all that good stuff, and just any parting wisdom that you can share out of your. Oh, there's so much in your toolbox, but whatever you'd like to share.
I think the big parting wisdom is eat protein first, like lift heavy things and sleep like a baby. Do those things. Makes life easy, right? And everything's at JJ Virgin. I created this roadmap because I went, all right, again, I think part of the problem is we have too much information. So if you go to jjvirgin.com/roadmap, there's a simple map that says, start here. Just start here, right? Just, start here with eating protein first and adding non-starchy vegetables. Let's just crowd out the bad stuff with the good stuff first. Then we'll do this, just simple walk through it.
So simple. You make it so simple. And I just pulled it up. Eat better, move more, be the best fat burner. And it's so easy to find. JJ Virgin. Oh my gosh, you've been such a gift here today. Thank you so much for spending I guess it's your afternoon. For me, it was still morning.
Yeah, morning.
We're on the other side of that right now, but what a gift, what a treasure. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for including me.
Oh my goodness. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. That was incredible. That was just packed with nuggets and pearls and all kinds of helpful, healthful information. JJ Virgin, you rock. You are unbelievable, incredible, beautiful, smart, intelligent, and fit as a fiddle. Holy smokes. This young lady is turning 60 this year, and she is just, oh my gosh, she is a product of the product. She is unbelievable, amazing, and she's just a real human, and it was so fun to sit and chat with her. I hope you got so much value out of that. I hope you'll share it, that you'll like it, you'll love it, you'll subscribe, that you'll share this with friends and family, anybody you care about, because she is so full of wisdom, 40 plus years in this industry, health, wellness, fitness, all the things that just get you to that optimal, ideal life that you dream of, getting out of bed every morning with energy, with zest, with vitality. She's all about that. She's still crushing it. 60 years old this year, and you would never know it. She's amazing. I want to have that energy in 10 years because I'm exactly 10 years behind her. And oh my gosh, what a gift. What a gift. Thank you, JJ. It's been a pleasure. I hope everybody is following you, and I hope they'll continue to follow me at Dr. Thomas Hemingway, Dr. Thomas Hemingway on Instagram, because there's lots of amazing news coming out. My book is coming out in just a couple of short weeks. You can hop on over to my website, thomashemingway.com. You can even pre-order that now, and there's going to be some special goodies for all those that pre-order. So I hope you'll do that. I can't wait to share that with you. It's such an incredible book. You will love it. And until next time, a big aloha.